Ever get that feeling? Like you're on a treadmill going full speed but not really getting anywhere. Or that some things you do are like, boom, super effective, while others feel like a total waste of time. Well, today we're diving deep into something that might change how you see all the 80/20 principle. It's this idea that a small percentage of causes, like 20%, often drive a huge chunk of the results, like 80%. It's kind of like that work smarter, not harder thing, but with a bit more of a mathematical backing. The whole thing started way back in the late 1800s with this Italian economist, Vilfredo Pareto. He was studying wealth distribution and noticed 80% of the land in Italy was owned by just 20% of the people. And get this, the guy started seeing this pattern everywhere, even in his garden. He found that 20% of his pea pods are producing 80% of the peas. Pea pods, people, profit. It's crazy how this 80/20 thing pops up, right? Got all these names. Pareto Principle, Pareto Law, 80/20 Rule, Principle of Least Effort, even Principle of Imbalance. Throw it an identity crisis. But wherever you call it, this 80/20 principle has been super influential, especially in business. Now you might be thinking, okay, interesting, but what does this actually mean for me? Well, think of it like this. The 80/20 principle is a lens. It helps you see the world differently, prioritize things, focus your energy, and basically get more bang for your buck. And that goes for your career, your personal life, even your pea garden, I guess. Let's jump into some real world examples to see how this plays out, shall we? Starting with business, because, well, everyone loves a good profit story, right? There's this company, Electronic Instruments Inc. They found that 20% of their products were bringing in a whopping 80% of their profits. Talk about a star performer. And it's not just products. Turns out 80% of business growth often comes from companies with less than 20% of the industry staff. Kind of you wonder about those giant corporations, huh? I remember when I was working in strategy consulting, always crunching numbers, figuring out the most profitable clients, which projects were worth it, all that. And the 80/20 principle was like our secret weapon. It helped us focus on the high value stuff, the things that would actually make a difference. And you know what? It worked. We boosted revenue, cut costs, and even managed some kind of work-life balance. Imagine that. But it's not just about business, right? This 80/20 thing is everywhere. Take language, for example. Sir Isaac Pitman, the guy who invented shorthand, figured out that just 700 common words and their derivatives make up like 80% of everyday speech. That's gonna be, what, less than 1% of the entire English language? Wild, right? Or how about crime? Turns out, a small percentage of criminals commit a large percentage of the crimes. It's like that bad apple saying, but with actual police reports to back it up. New York City had a huge drop in crime back in the 90s when they used the 80/20 principle to focus on those repeat offenders in high crime areas. Pretty smart, right? But honestly, the most interesting part of the 80/20 principle, I think, is how it applies to our personal lives. Like, think about your closet. How many clothes do you actually wear regularly? Probably not that many, right? The 80/20 principle says we tend to wear 20% of our clothes 80% of the time. So why are we holding on to all that extra stuff? The 80/20 principle says flip that script. Focus on the things that bring you joy, the things that make you feel alive, the relationships that nourish you, because isn't that what life is all about? Living a life that feels good, a life that aligns with what you value, a life that, actually makes you happy. Pretty deep stuff, right? And the cool thing is, the 80/20 principle can help us get there. It's like a roadmap, a guide, a cheat code even, to creating a life we love. So how do we actually apply this principle to our lives? Well, that's what we'll be exploring in the rest of this deep dive. We'll talk about specific strategies for applying the 80/20 principle to your work, your relationships, your health, your finances, pretty much every area of your life. But for now, I want you to just sit with this idea. Think about the areas where you're putting in a ton of effort, but not seeing much in return. Think about the things that drain you and the things that make you feel alive, the relationships that lift you up, and the ones that leave you feeling depleted. And then start asking yourself, how can I apply the 80/20 principle to this part of my life? How can I focus on the 20% that truly matters and let go of the 80% that's just weighing me down? Because trust me, once you start seeing the world through this 80/20 lens, everything changes. You see opportunities where you used to see obstacles, you feel empowered to make choices that align with what you value, and you start creating a life that feels more intentional, more fulfilling, just plain better? So, are you ready to dive in? Okay, so we've kind of laid the groundwork, right? Got a feel for this whole 80/20 thing, but let's get down to brass tacks. Putting into practice, that's where the magic happens. One of the most powerful ways to use this 80/20 principle is indecision making. Think about it, we're making decisions all day long, big and small. What to eat, what to wear, what to work on, what to say yes to, what to say no to. It's a lot, right? And we often get stuck, overthinking, overanalyzing, trying to get every bit of information, weigh every option. Like we're searching for the perfect solution, the foolproof plan, the guaranteed win. But here's the thing, perfection doesn't exist. And even if it did, we'd probably miss it while stressing over every little detail. The 80/20 principle suggests a different approach, something a bit more streamlined. It's called the 80/20/100/100 rule. Sounds complicated, but it's not. Basically, you aim to get 80% of the information you need in just 20% of the time. Then, you make a decision and commit to it 100%, even if you don't have every single answer. And once you've made that decision, you put 100% of your energy into making it work. It's a bit of a shift, right? We're so used to thinking we need all the information, all the data, all the opinions before we can decide anything. But honestly, most of that is just noise. It's not helping us decide better, just cluttering our minds and making us scared to act. This 80/20/100/100 rule is about trusting your gut, being decisive, and being ready to change course if needed. Because even if you had 100% of the information, there's still no guarantee you'll make the right choice. And a lot of times, by the time you gather everything, the opportunity gone anyway. I remember this one time a few years back, I got this amazing opportunity, a project I was really excited about. But you know me, I was hesitant, worried about failing, not being good enough, letting people down. So what did I do? I went into information overload, talking to everyone I knew who had any experience, reading everything I could find, watching videos, you name it. But the more info I got, the more overwhelmed I felt. Every bit of advice, every data point, it was just adding to the noise. I was so scared of making the wrong choice that I almost talked myself out of the whole thing. Then I remembered the 80/20 principle. I realized I was spending way too much time gathering and not enough time doing. So I took a deep breath, trusted my gut, and said yes. And you know what? Best decision ever. The project was tough, sure, but it was also so rewarding. I learned a ton, grew a lot, met incredible people. And it all started with that decision, trusting myself, being decisive, embracing the unknown. That's what I love about the 80/20 principle. It gives you permission to let go of perfectionism, to be okay with not having everything figured out, to make mistakes and learn from them. Because let's be real, mistakes, they're going to happen to all of us. But they don't define us. It's how we learn from them that matters. And the 80/20 principle, it encourages us to see mistakes as opportunities, as lessons that help us become better, smarter, tougher. So next time you're facing a decision, big or small, remember the 80/20. Get enough information to feel good, but don't get lost in the weeds. Trust your gut, make the call, be ready to adjust if things change. You might surprise yourself with what you can do. Okay, we've tackled decision making. Now let's talk about another area where the 80/20 principle could be super helpful. Time management. Because let's be honest, time. It's our most precious resource. We all have the same 24 hours, but some people just seem to get so much more done. Like they have some secret time warping superpower. But you know what? It's not magic, it's strategy. It's using the 80/20 principle to figure out what really matters, the stuff that's actually getting you closer to your goals, and then focusing on those things. That means being, well, a little ruthless with your time, saying no to things that don't align with your priorities, delegating when you can, basically becoming the CEO of your own schedule. I remember a few years ago, I was working on this huge project, tons of moving parts. I felt completely overwhelmed, drowning in to-do lists, deadlines breathing down my neck. I was working late, weekends, the whole bit. And the worst part, I wasn't even sure if I was making any progress. All that effort, but not seeing the results I wanted. Then, 80-20 principle to the rescue. I realized I was wasting way too much time on low-value stuff, things that weren't actually making a difference. So I took a step back and did a little 80-20 analysis, a look at my to-do list, and asked myself, which of these are truly essential? Which ones will have the biggest impact? And it was like a light bulb moment. I realized that only about 20% of those tasks were actually crucial. The other 80%, busy work, things I could delegate or just get rid of completely. So I started prioritizing, focused on that essential 20%, delegated or dumped the rest. And it was amazing. I felt lighter, more in control. And the best part, I was actually making real progress. Like I found the right gear, moving faster, more efficient, and I was actually enjoying the process. All because I made a decision to be strategic with my time, to focus on the essential stuff, and let go of the rest. That's the 80-20 in action, giving you permission to simplify, to prioritize, to hone in on what really matters. So next time your to-do list is making you sweat, remember the 80-20 principle. Take a step back, analyze, find that essential 20%, then pour your energy into those tasks and let the rest go. You'll be amazed how much more you can achieve and how much more fun you'll have doing it. Okay, so decision making, time management, check and check. Let's move on to another area where the 80-20 principle can be a game changer. Relationships. Because let's be real, relationships are what make life worth living, right? Our connections with people, family, friends, partners, colleagues. That's where we find joy, support, that sense of belonging. But here's the thing. Not all relationships are created equal. Some are more nourishing than others. Some drain our energy while others fill us up. And the 80-20 principle says we can build deeper, more fulfilling relationships by focusing on that 20% that truly matter. It's about being intentional with who you spend your time with. Choosing to invest in the relationships that bring you joy, that support your growth, that make you feel good about yourself. And it also means being willing to let go of the ones that aren't serving you anymore, the ones that drain you, stress you out, or just make you feel bad. Because honestly, you deserve to be surrounded by people who love you, support you, and make you feel good. And sometimes that means saying goodbye to the people who don't. I remember a few years back, I was going through a really tough time, feeling lost, confused, down in the dumps. And I had this group of friends I used to hang out with all the time. But the more time I spent with them, the worse I felt. They were always gossiping, complaining, just bringing me down. And I knew I needed to make a change. Surround myself with people who would lift me up, support me, remind me of my own strength. So I started distancing myself from that group. Didn't make a big deal about it, just gradually started spending less time with them. And you know what? It was the best thing I ever did. As I made space for more positive, supportive relationships, I started to feel better, more confident, more energized, more like myself. And started with a decision to prioritize my own well-being, to choose relationships that nourished me, and to let go of the ones that didn't. That's the power of the 80-20. It lets you be picky about your relationships. Choose the people who bring out your best and let go of the ones who don't. Because we can't control how others act, but we can control who we let into our lives. And we deserve to be around people who make us feel good, who support us, who remind us of our worth. Okay, so we've covered decision-making, time management, and relationships. Now let's shift gears to another area where the 80-20 principle can be a total game changer. Work. Work takes up a big chunk of our lives, right? We spend so much time and energy on it, it makes sense to want work that's both meaningful and fulfilling. But here's the thing. Not all work is created equal. Some jobs just fit better with our values and passions. Some drain us, while others energize us. And the 80-20 principle suggests we can find work we love, work that feels like a calling. by focusing on that 20% of activities that truly light us up. It's about being honest with yourself about what you enjoy. What are your strengths, your passions? What are the things that make you feel alive, engaged, in the flow? And it means being willing to experiment, try new things, get out of your comfort zone a bit. Because sometimes we don't know our dream job until we stumble upon it. And those unexpected opportunities can lead to the most fulfilling paths. A few years ago, I was in a job that, well, let's just say it wasn't exactly setting my soul on fire. Looked good on paper, good pay benefits in my field. But I was bored, not challenged, feeling like I was wasting my potential. So I started exploring, talking to people in different fields, taking online courses, just putting myself out there to see what clicked. Then, one day, I came across this opportunity to work on a podcast. And the topic, the 80-20 principle of all things. I'd never even listened to a podcast before, but something about it just felt right. It fit my interests, it sounded fun, and it felt like a chance to use my skills in a totally new way. So I took the leap and applied. And guess what? Best decision ever. Working on this podcast has been more than just a job. It's been a journey of self-discovery, a chance to connect with amazing people, and an opportunity to share ideas I'm truly passionate about. And it all started with a decision to trust myself, be open to new possibilities, and follow my curiosity. That's the 80-20 in action good. This. It gives you permission to explore, to experiment, to find work that truly aligns with your passions and your purpose. Because life is way too short to spend it doing work that drains you and leaves you feeling empty. You deserve to find work that lights you up, work that challenges you, work that makes you feel like you're making a difference. Okay, so we've talked about decision making, time management, relationships, and work. Phew, let's move on to another area where the 80-20 principle can make a huge difference. Health and well-being. Our health is our most valuable asset, right? Without it, we can't enjoy anything else life has to offer. But here's the good news. Taking care of your health and well-being doesn't have to be complicated. The 80-20 principle says we can achieve optimal health by focusing on just a few key habits. This means being mindful of what you eat, choosing foods that nourish your body, give you energy, and provide the nutrients you need to thrive. And it means moving your body in ways that feel good, whether it's walking, dancing, yoga, whatever floats your boat. And of course, it means getting enough sleep, managing stress, basically taking care of yourself both physically and mentally, because your body and mind are connected. When you take care of one, it helps the other. It's a win-win. A few years back, I was feeling totally burnt out, working long hours, not sleeping enough, and my diet was, well, let's just say it wasn't exactly winning any health awards, and I was definitely feeling the effects. Tired all the time, getting sick more often, just feeling blah. So I decided to make a change, started prioritizing my health and well-being, began eating healthier, exercising regularly, getting more sleep, and finding ways to manage stress. And you know what? It was amazing. I started feeling better almost immediately. More energy, better sleep, fewer sick days, and just feeling more alive overall. All because I made a decision. A decision to prioritize my health, to make choices that supported my well-being, and to treat my body with the respect it deserves. That's the 80-20 again. It gives you permission to simplify your approach to health, focus on the habits that really make a difference, and let go of the rest. Taking care of your health doesn't have to be overwhelming. It's about making small, sustainable changes that you can stick with over time. Okay, we've tackled decision-making, time management, relationships, work, and health. Feeling good. Let's move on to another area where the 80-20 principle can be incredibly helpful. Money. Money plays a big part in our lives, right? It affects our choices, our opportunities, our ability to live the life we want. But managing your money doesn't have to be a constant source of stress. In fact, the 80-20 principle suggests we can achieve financial freedom by focusing on a few key principles. This means being mindful of your spending. Track where your money is going. Find areas where you can cut back. Make sure your money is working for you, not against you. It also means being intentional about saving and investing, putting money aside regularly, even if it's a small amount, and making sure your money is growing over time. And don't forget about your earning potential. Explore opportunities to increase your income, whether it's negotiating a raise, starting a side hustle, whatever makes sense for you, because you have more control over your finances than you might realize. And by using the 80/20 principle to focus on the habits and strategies that have the biggest impact, you can create a more secure and abundant financial future. A few years back, I was seriously stressed about money, living paycheck to paycheck, had some debt, felt like I was barely keeping my head above water. I knew I needed a change. I needed to get my finances in order, create some security, and start building a foundation for the future I wanted. So I decided to get educated about personal finance. I read books, listened to podcasts, talked to financial advisors, basically soaked up as much info as I could. Then I started putting what I learned into action. Created a budget, tracked my expenses, started paying down debt, began saving regularly, and started investing. And you guessed it, the results were amazing. As I took control of my finances, I started feeling more empowered, more confident, more secure, just more in control of my life overall. And it all came down to a decision to educate myself, take responsibility for my financial well being, and make choices that supported my long term goals. The 80/20 principle in action once again. It helps you simplify your approach to money, focus on the habits and strategies that matter most, and let go of the rest. Financial freedom doesn't have to be this complicated, elusive thing. It's about making small, sustainable changes that you can stick with over time. We've talked about applying this 80/20 principle to a lot of stuff, right? Business, decisions, time, relationships, work, health, money, even giving back. But here's the thing that really blows my mind, This 80/20 principle isn't just about tweaking a few things here and there. It can actually help us solve some of the biggest challenges facing society. Seriously, big stuff, crime, poverty, education, healthcare, you name it. It's easy to feel kind of overwhelmed by these problems, right? What can one person do to actually make a dent in something that massive? But the 80/20 principle, it reminds us that even small, focused actions can have a huge ripple effect. We talked earlier about how New York City used it to tackle crime, right? By zeroing in on repeat offenders in high crime areas, they were able to make a real impact. Imagine applying that same logic to education. What if we focused on empowering let's say, the 20% of teachers who are truly exceptional? Give them the resources and support they need to create this ripple effect that benefits all students. Or think about healthcare. What if we shifted our focus from treating illness to preventing it in the first place, like help people adopt healthy habits, provide access to affordable preventative care, address the root causes instead of just treating the symptoms? The 80/20 principle doesn't give us all the answers, of course, but it gives us a framework. It encourages us to ask, what are the key leverage points? Where can we focus our efforts to make the biggest difference? I remember reading about this village in Africa. They were struggling with access to clean water. They could have tried to raise money to build this massive water treatment plant, but that would have been super expensive and complicated, right? Instead, they focused on training a small group of women to maintain and repair simple, low-cost water pumps. And guess what? It worked. Those women became like the water heroes of their village, making sure everyone had clean water. It's a perfect example of how focusing on the vital few can create a ripple effect that benefits so many others. So as we wrap up this deep dive into the 80/20 principle, I want you to think about the challenges that matter most to you, the problems that keep you up at night, the things that make you want to make a difference. Then ask yourself, how can I use the 80/20 principle to tackle this? What are the pressure points? Where can I put my energy to create the biggest impact? It might be volunteering your time, donating to a cause you care about, or just speaking up about an issue that matters to you. Every little bit helps. And that's what's so powerful about this 80/20 principle. You know, it's not just about personal productivity or success, it's about using our time and energy to make a positive impact. It's about realizing we all have a part to play in creating a better world, a more just world, more equitable world. So go out there and make the most of your 20%, my friend. The world needs you. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe, like, comment, and share. Until then, drive safely and keep learning. I'll catch you on our next deep dive.